What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Sports Scoop. Today, I'm going to be doing a New York Jets mock draft for the upcoming draft. So, given that the draft is on Thursday, I'm just going to kind of run over what I would do if I was a general manager of the New York Jets, which is my favorite team, before the actual draft happens on Thursday. And if you are new to the channel, make sure to kind of like and subscribe if you enjoy this content. We will also, for the draft, be going live. So, make sure to check that out. It's going to be really, really nice. So, let's get into the video. So I'm just simulating the first three picks. So I feel like this is a potential way the board could go down. And if I was the general manager here, because here's what, based on the recent buzz, what I'm hearing, I think that the Jets might be inclined to take Jermaine Johnson from Florida State. But if I was the general manager, I would personally go Kayvon Thibodeau. And the reason for that is just because of the fact that I think he provides the highest upside of any pass rusher and arguably any player in this draft. He's got great speed, good bend. He showed really good production in his first few years at Oregon. And obviously this season he was a bit more injured, which is why kind of his draft stock may have fallen compared to Aiden Hutchinson, who is now seen probably as almost the consensus edge one. I mean, maybe Trayvon Walker also. But I think personally, if I were the New York Jets, I would definitely jump at the opportunity to take Kayvon Thibodeau. I think he provides kind of a good fit for the Robert Saleh defense. Obviously, the concerns with the lack of motor are somewhat valid, but I think he will kind of learn to refine his technique and again play a bit more full throttle in the NFL. So I think it makes sense here, given the upside potential and the overall potential to be one of the best players in this class. Now going to the number 10th pick, you got the Jets again. This is an interesting situation to be here. I think personally, I would have gone Garrett Wilson if he was available right here, but he isn't. So it's a bit of a predicament. I would go Jameson Williams, though. I know he's coming off the ACL injury, which does make this pick obviously a little bit frightening. But my reasoning for this here is the fact that he is, according to a lot of people who've gone and seen him, a lot of people that have interviewed him, he's looked really good in his rehab. We heard that he's targeting a potential return during training camp, which is, I think, amazing, especially considering how detrimental ACL injuries can be. But he has looked really good in so far as rehab. And I think a lot of executives who see that are going to be much more inclined to take him in a top 15 role. I think there would be no doubt, no hesitation around this pick if he did not suffer that injury. But even with that injury, I think he's got, again, similar to Thibodeau, the potential to be one of the best, if not the best player at his position in this draft class. So he feels another big need for the Jets. Obviously, they do have guys like Elijah Moore. They got Corey Davis and Braxton Berrios, but there is not enough depth at the position, and you still really don't have a true number one receiver. And Williams coming from a Z position, I think he could definitely provide that and be that kind of expert weapon for Zach Wilson. Now you have the second round, 35. And I think this is honestly, personally, I think this is a dream scenario for the Jets. I think no hesitation taking Nakobe Dean. I think obviously one of the main concerns with him is his kind of the fact that he is a little bit undersized. But personally, that doesn't really, it's not as big a deal to me as it would have been 10 years ago, considering the how much more common now we see a lot of more undersized linebackers. I know this is a generic example, but Darius Leonard, he's been an all pro linebacker for a few years now. And he is like, what? I can't remember exactly. I think he's like either low 6 feet or maybe even 5'11", not exactly sure, but he's been one of the better outside linebackers in this league. So I think Nakobe Dean in the modern NFL, he could fit perfectly. And the Jets, we know they kind of have a bit of a lack of linebacking depth. Obviously, you do have CJ Mosley, you do have Quincy Williams, but after that, kind of the list gets a bit more. It's just like very lack of depth. You got Jamian Sherwood, who's okay, but he's coming off an ACL injury. Hamza Nasruddin, but he's a converted safety. Delshon Phillips. There just isn't really a lot of top tier names. You also traded away Blake Cashman. So I think a really good sub linebacker like Nakobe Dean, again, similar to the other two. These are all guys who have potential to be the best in this class at their certain position. So I think this so far would be a slam dunk draft for the New York Jets. Now you have 38, and I'm between two players right here because I really like Travis Jones out of UConn. I know the Jets already have Quinn Williams and John Franklin Myers, who, if the Jets were to take Sorry about that. If the Jets were to take Kayvon Thibodeau, John Franklin Myers would slot back into interior defensive line. And you also have Quinnen Williams, who, again, still has a lot of potential, still is very young. But I think Travis Jones would be a great fit there because he really kind of shores up the Jets' very, very bad run defense last season. He could kind of be a kind of first and second down player and be really a great fit there. But I also really like Kyler Gordon out of Washington. The Jets really, again, secondary, they also made some enforcements, particularly at corner. They did sign DJ Reed, who had a very underrated season in Seattle. You also have promising corner Bryce Hall, and you also have rookies like Brandon Eccles and Michael Carter II, who also showed a lot of promise. So cornerback isn't necessarily as dire of a need that it was before, but I still think it could definitely help to take a player like him who actually didn't allow any touchdowns this season, which is really something that's very unknown. So it's between those two guys. I would go with Kyler Gordon from Washington. I'm gonna go with Gordon, and I really like Travis Jones, which is why it kind of hurts to do that. But I still think just kind of the effect Kyler Gordon could have. I think he can play slot, he can play outside, he can play really well in the zone system that solid runs. And I think it's kind of just overall you have to be looking at value in the second round. I think he's perfect value for that spot at 38. So I have Kyler Gordon there. Now you're in round 3. This is where it gets a bit interesting. I think Cole Strange from Chattanooga, really tempting here. He is, like I says, he's listed as guard. He could also play center, which I think is the main need for the Jets here, considering they already did shore up the guard position. You have, it's tough. Running back is potentially an option, I think, but I think it's a bit early for that. Safety, let's look at those guys who's available. Brian Cook, Nick Cross. There aren't bad options. I don't think there are necessarily any like options that you could be like, oh, just there's nothing here. But I think maybe you'd want a bit more from this position. I am going, and this is kind of like a very Joe Douglas like pick. I'm going to go Abraham Lucas from Washington State. And I know the Jets already do have 2 really good tackles in George Fant and Mekhi Becton. But the reason for this is the fact that Fant will be out of contract following next season. I'm not sure if the Jets are going to retain him. And I think Abraham Lucas kind of would slot him perfectly into that jet zone run system, kind of as a right tackle, and maybe move Becton back to left tackle. And if Becton, because I know there have been a lot of concerns about whether or not he's the answer, if he doesn't work out, then maybe you re-sign Fant and you got Fant playing left tackle and you have Lucas playing right tackle. I think Lucas, again, another one of those players, I think it'd be help him to sit for a year, kind of not be pushed into that starting role immediately. And then year 2, we see him take over and be a great fit there. Now you're in the 4th round, and this is kind of interesting because I think this is where also the Jets are going to start to consider a running back, because I think obviously they do have Michael Carter, who's great. You do have kind of underrated guys like Ty Johnson and Tevin Coleman, but I think they still kind of need that running back number 2 that complement to Michael Carter. They could go one now. Again, I think safety definitely is a good option here. You have wide receivers, probably would be a reach here. Interior offensive lineman, same. I think it's an interesting situation. Could go corner again. Mathis, Pittsburgh. I think he'd be nice. I am thinking about it. I'm going to go. I think Flandre Mathis. I think he's a tempting guy. I'm gonna go him. Yeah, Flandre Mathis from Alabama. Like I said, I think he'll play similar to the Travis Jones role. That if he was picked at 38, again, he's gonna be that kind of 3 technique on the defense, that run stopper that they really need because of, again, Quinn Williams and John Franklin Myers. They're great, but their primary strength is rushing the passer. I know they signed Solomon Thomas, but he's also not an elite run defender. So maybe just kind of get another interior defensive lineman to kind of shore up that run game, make sure that it goes from one of the worst in the league to simply at least average. Now, 117, I think running back seriously now has to be considered. I think there are a lot of great guys in this draft to choose from, a lot of guys that could really fit the Jet system. Brian Robinson, Dameon Pierce, Hassan Haskins, Jerome Ford, all great options. I think my favorite personally is Pierre Strong from South Dakota State. Think he is a perfect fit for this run zone system, this zone running system. Sorry, and again, similar to, I think he's a bit similar to Michael Carter, which could be a bit of a turnoff, but I still think he'd be a great option at 117 for the Jets. Safety, again, still a real option. It's a tough position. I'm going to go Pierre Strong though, because I really like his value here. And I think the Jets could, I think as good as Carter is, I think nowadays you see a lot more teams leaning into that kind of running back by committee system. And again, I like Ty Johnson, I like Tevin Coleman, but I think they need that kind of clear cut number two, can be who can form a serious tandem with Michael Carter. And I think Pierre Strong kind of fits that role. Now 146. Now this is again, you're looking probably at safety. I think safety is definitely a position you're looking at. I think tight end potentially. I think it wouldn't surprise me at all if the Jets went tight end despite getting Uzama, despite getting Conklin. I think you could see a lot of 12 personnel run in this Michael Floor offense. So wouldn't surprise me if they grab a guy like a Bellinger, a Ferguson. It's a tough position here. I'm looking at this. I think also wouldn't surprise me. Maybe they go center here. I am going to go with I'm gonna go Sterling Weatherford from Miami. I think again, the safety position, another position that has been reinforced through free agency. We saw them get Jordan Whitehead, and we know Lamarcus Joyner is coming back. He was re-signed. And you've also got guys that showed promise like Jason Pinnock and Ashton Davis. But I don't think that's necessarily enough yet to kind of be confident with the safety unit. And I don't know even if really Sterling Weatherford will see much time on the field, but I think it's just a safety net in case all else fails. So I think he could be a solid producer for this team and maybe get a few snaps. Now you have, I think this is their last pick. Let's see. Yeah, they don't have any picks in the 200. So this would be their last pick. And if it was real life, not real. I mean, kicker is not an option on this. We wouldn't take a punter here because I think our punting position is fine. But I think even though we have signed two kickers, so I think we're okay there. Interior offensive line, maybe. I think this is a position that you could maybe see them target just for again some depth, some almost a bit of safety at the position. Another linebacker would not surprise me at all. You've got I think the guys here are a bit not as good as you, obviously not as good, but maybe not as good as you'd like for this area. I think maybe go another receiver. I think that definitely has to be very tempting. I think you got some solid guys here. You got Romeo Doubs. I think he could be very tempting for that kind of deep ball game that maybe the Jets will like to open up a bit more this season. Bo Melton from Rutgers, I really like. Jalen Naylor from Michigan State. I'm going, you know what? I think again, the Jets did address receiver. They got Jameson Williams, but they've still only got, I'd say, five receivers that I'm particularly confident going into next season. You kind of want at least again, maybe reinforce that position. So I'm going to go Romeo Doubs from Nevada to close out this mock draft. So this is what I would personally do. So the picks are, as you can see, Thibodeau at 4, Jameson Williams at 10, Nakobe Dean at 35, Kyler Gordon at 38, Abraham Lucas at 69, Fedarian Mathis at 111, Pierre Strong at 117, Sterling Weatherford at 146, and Romeo Doubs at 163. So look at this, and I think it's a pretty good mock draft because I think it fills really, as you can see on the Jets board, it's like it fills all their needs. But I think the only issue really is the fact that maybe there are certain positions that you would have wanted to reinforce a bit more, maybe reinforce a bit earlier. Maybe instead of I'm going to go back to this. Maybe you want to go corner earlier. Maybe you want to kind of, again, double reinforce linebacker, considering, again, how kind of weak in terms of depth the position is. But I think overall, if this was, as a Jets fan, personally, if this was our draft, I think this would be a great draft. But then again, based on recent reports, I could see this draft board going very differently from how it is right now. But as a Jets fan, this would be a great mock draft, and I think I'd be very comfortable with this team going into next season. But that is it for the video. If you enjoyed, make sure to like and subscribe. Comment down below what your mock draft would be for the New York Jets. I basically look at Jets mock drafts all the time because I'm just very nervous going to this period. So if you tell me if you liked it, tell me what you didn't like, what you would change. And yeah, that's it for the video. Thank you for watching.